evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Directors Panel Series. My name is Pardeep Singh Nagra. I'm the Human Rights and Equity Advisor for the Halton District School Board, and it's my honor to be with my esteemed panelists to share with you the exciting multi-year strategic plan for the Halton District School Board. With us tonight, and joining me as a facilitator, is Student Trustee Charlie Ochu. We have our Board of Trustees Chair, Amy Collard. We have our Board of Trustees Vice Chair, Joanna Oliver. We have Superintendent of Human Resources, Allison Bader Ippolito. We have our System Superintendent with Schools, Tara Connor. We have our System Superintendent with Schools, Eleanor McIntosh. We have our System Principal for Indigenous Rights and Education, Gabriella Echevarri. And we have our Director of Education, Mr. Curtis Ennis, and again, myself as the Human Rights and Equity Advisor. Aptly named the Directors Panel Series, I think it's most appropriate to turn over to our Director of Education, Curtis Ennis, to share welcoming remarks.
Thank you so much, Pardeep, and good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to you all. It is great to have you back for another episode of the Directors Panel Series. This year, we're going to be focusing on the multi-year strategic plan for 2024 to 2028. And we have invited some esteemed guests to join us this evening to share their thoughts and insights into how we will live, breathe this strategy for the next 4 years. And so before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge the land. We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which HDSB is situated on the ancestral, treaty, and tidal lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Mississauga Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Mississauga territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights, while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land. So we had the opportunity to engage with thousands of community members, stakeholders, staff, students, trustees, and in a variety of ways. And so we landed on 6 commitments, and this has formed the HDSB new multi-year strategic plan for 2024 to 2028. The first commitment that we'll look at is learning, engagement, and achievement. Of course, this is central to everything that we do. We're often asked the question about learning, engagement, and achievement of our students. And at the Halton District School Board, we're committed to engaging in excellence in learning, engagement, and achievement for all of our students. We are particularly focused on making sure that everyone achieves and engages and learns at the same level or engages in a way that brings out their very best selves. And so we are particularly proud of centering learning, engagement, and achievement for all students from kindergarten right through grade 12. And so we look forward to what the next 4 years are going to bring with a robust engagement strategy that engages our learners in ways that are exciting and that they will want to wake up every single morning and come to school because of the learning and the engagement and the achievement that will follow. We have a new commitment, kindness, connection, and community. And this one, I'm sure I won't say too much about this because I know that throughout the presentation this evening, our chair of the board, our vice chair, or others on the panel will want to talk to you more about what this means. I think everyone can appreciate the need for this particular commitment as a community. Indigenous rights and education. We continue, of course, our commitment to our Indigenous communities, making sure that we are partnering with our treaty partner, understanding that we have a robust Indigenous rights and education team within the Halton District School Board to support the work around truth and reconciliation. And so this is something that I know that we're going to continue to improve upon and get better at as we seek to address all of the calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation. Human rights, equity, and inclusion continues to be a focus for us as a board. We know what it means to be included in the circle, to have a space and to have a voice, and to be at the table to make sure that everyone is represented and that their voice matters. And so we want to make sure that everyone understands that we have a human rights, equity, and inclusion focus at the board that speaks to equity of outcome, equity of access, and equity of ensuring that everyone has equity of outcome. So this is something that is central to the work that we do because we serve such a diverse group of learners and families with different identities. And so this is something that we're proud of and we will continue to focus on as we center learning and achievement, understanding the identities of the families that we serve, that it matters. Mental health and well-being. We've heard loud and clear that our students, and from our student trustee who is on with us tonight, Charlie Ochu, he spoke to this at the board meeting, that mental health and well-being is something that we must continue to focus on as a board because our students are asking for it. They're craving this work. And so we have a team of professionals who work with our students and our staff to ensure that we are, that they know that we support them as a whole human being. Environmental and global citizenship, of course, is a continued focus. We see what is happening in our world. This is dominating the news right now, the news cycle about what's happening in our environment. And so we need not look far to see the impacts of climate change and the environment, but also understanding that as global citizens, we all have a responsibility to innovate and to make the connections that we're all part of the human family and the human chain.
It's so exciting to be finally unveiling our 2024 to 2028 multi-year strategic plan.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited about seeing the community's response to all of the feedback and input they gave into the plan that's helped us make this one of the best plans the board has ever had.
I can't wait. I think that everyone is going to see themselves reflected in this plan. It's going to be an inclusive plan. And I think that everyone is going to be so appreciative of all the work that's gone into it and make it come to life. Let's do it. My name is Curtis Ennis, Director of Education for the Halton District School Board. We're excited to be here today to share with you and reveal our 2024 to 2028 multi-year strategic plan, and to share with you how this plan will directly shape and enrich your educational experience.
Indeed we are, Director Ennis. We have 6 commitments in our plan that we're confident will enhance and strengthen your experience in school. Learning, engagement, and achievement, kindness, connection, and community, Indigenous rights and education, human rights, equity, and inclusion, mental health and well-being, and environmental and global citizenship. Yes?
Why is the multi-year strategic plan so important?
I'm so glad you asked. Let us show you why. We're focusing on making learning even more engaging in the Halton District School Board. Through this plan, we will create vibrant, supportive spaces where students and staff are inspired to learn and thrive in their pursuit of excellence. We want you to have more opportunities to explore your interests and aspirations through new, unique ways of learning that are exciting and relevant. We want to help you reach your full potential and set you on a positive pathway when you leave the HDSB and enter the next stage of your life.
We want to empower you, our students, to receive the best education possible. And for staff, we want you to have the training and professional learning you need to be as effective as you can be in your role.
This is such an important commitment. We will support well-being in all aspects, ensuring everyone can thrive academically, physically, socially, and emotionally, so you can have a healthy mindset and be in a positive position to do your best learning and engage in your educational experience.
We will build and maintain healthy relationships and create safe and supportive environments. Please know that we're here for you.
We want our students to become responsible environmental stewards and global citizens by honoring the connections among all living beings to contribute to a sustainable future. We will do this through innovative teaching, emphasizing critical thinking skills, encouraging adaptability, and fostering problem-solving skills.
We will do this by focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and incorporating those into our learning and working environments. As a board, and with your support, we will be part of the solution to making our world a healthier, more sustainable, and viable place for the future generations.
Indigenous rights in education is integral in our multi-year strategic plan. We will uphold inherent and Indigenous rights while deepening all of our understanding and shared responsibility for treaty knowledge and reconciliation.
For you, this means integrating this learning into your classes by enhancing the presence of Indigenous voices to promote greater awareness and understanding of Indigenous histories, truths, and current realities, and addressing systemic barriers to support the success and achievements of Indigenous students. All of these commitments must be implemented in environments that are inclusive, respectful, accessible, and equitable, where human rights are upheld, diversity is celebrated, and systemic barriers are addressed.
And we will do this by honoring the diverse identities within our communities and promoting success for students and staff with varying experiences and socioeconomic circumstances.
And through it all, we will ensure we center our learning within a culture of kindness that promotes empathy, respect, and trust among one another.
Absolutely, Director Ennis. We will strive to be a board of compassion that builds and creates positive community engagement and relationships with students, staff, and the broader community. We will support each other.
So what do you think? Are you ready to see the 2024 to 2028 multi-year strategic plan, to see that in action? Amazing. Absolutely. We're ready to go.
Thank you very much for that video, Heather. It gives me a chance to thank the communication team, which has done a stellar job with respect to not only bringing the strategic plan and making it into a visionary project with respect to how we are presenting it via videos, how we're presenting it in terms of pamphlets, and how we are staging it throughout the organization and communicating it out to the community. Not to mention that you're behind the scenes and helping us prepare for tonight's Directors Panel series as well. So thank you very much. And as you can see, Chair Collard and Director Ennis have been really busy, because it's one thing to create a multi-year strategic plan, and then the work starts, really. And it's about communicating that plan, sharing that plan, engaging that plan. And so I know you both have been really busy, and tonight just another moment of busyness of being here to be able to share with the greater public and our stakeholders tonight as part of the Directors Panel series, the multi-year strategic plan. So thank you very much. And I think that video is a testament to the hard work that you are both doing as ambassadors for the board and the multi-year strategic plan. So thank you very much. I probably want to start off, we always think about the multi-year strategic plan, and we try to keep a lot of different stakeholders in focus, but our primary stakeholders are always students. And so probably the first question I want to ask and share tonight out is with our student trustee, who, if Charlie, if we go back just a little bit, you had a chance to be on the multi-year strategic plan committee. And so do you want to just share about what the origins of coming to the fruition of the plan and your experience being on that committee? You want to just share a little bit about that?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you very much. The origins of me coming into the multi-year strategic plan was first being introduced to it by my former student trustees, Sharina and Sultan. They did an incredible job of enlightening me about the plan. They worked with it a bit as well, and I was ready and eager to work with it as well. And thankfully, being on the multi-year strategic plan committee, I was able to really get in tune with it and really give my own opinions and speak for the students, because that is something that I'm very passionate about, making sure that student voice reaches the board. And I think that being able to work on the multi-year strategic plan, being in the committee, has been one of the best ways to do that.
No, and I really appreciate it. And I think student voice is always important. And, speaking of being on the committee, and, this is kind of getting back into behind the scenes kind of piece of us for the plan that we showed you and what went into it. And Director Ennis kind of shared about first reaching out to stakeholders and communities and parents and students and getting some advice and opinion. I do want to say this. I do want to give kudos to our chair and vice chair, because one of the interesting things about the plan is to see the strength of our previous plan, and to see that that's a legacy that's still valued as part of this plan. So, Trustee Vice Chair Oliver, do you want to just share any experiences being on the committee itself too, and maybe the things that we're thinking about, talking about, exploring, challenging each other with?
Great. I had the honor of sitting on the multi-year strategic plan planning committee alongside with my fellow trustees and the senior team. And what was really amazing was the sessions that we held that looked at all the feedback that we received from the community. There was a great number of consultations, and as a result, feedback from community stakeholders, which included students and staff, parents and guardians, and other education stakeholders who took the time to provide us with their insights into what they believed our plan should include. And so I really love the sessions that we held during the course of the summer, where we met collectively with all the trustees and the senior team, and were able to discuss and kind of delve deeper into, what was important to take away from that feedback, and how did we envision parceling it, I guess, and packaging it into a plan. We did recognize the value of the previous multi-year plan, which you will recognize many of the commitments still are being upheld. And the new commitment of kindness, connection, and community came into play. And that was a really interesting one, because it did also come from not just us and students, but it came from the community members as well. So I think discussing all of those in depth and coming up with ideas of how they could be operationalized, and our visions and aspirations for what each commitment would uphold, was a very interesting process. And I loved working with staff and seeing how excited they got when we were talking about each of the commitments. Student voice was very, very important, and we were grateful to have both of our student trustees, Charlie and Caitlin, participate on that steering committee and provide their input. We certainly listened to them, and we incorporated their suggestions. And we've heard, through the student trustees, the great support that we received from the student body. All of these commitments are incredibly important to all the students. And we know that, and we hear that through the work of the Senate in how the students discuss and engage with the commitments now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of which, and I can speak on behalf of myself as well. I think being and having a collective that worked on the multi-year strategic plan, right, from the trustees to staff to senior team to students, I think really took a team approach and really helped solidify all of our commitment together, and so we can all go forward as a system. And it's interesting when I reflect back being on the committee itself too, and I'm going to ask Superintendent Ippolito probably to share her thoughts on this aspect. Again, once we kind of gathered what may be some of the key commitments, then we were looking at how should we present those commitments, right? And so even the aesthetics of the multi-year strategic plan and what does it look like? Because again, we heard from the last one to try to keep it simple and focused as well in terms of when we're presenting it. And so, Allison, do you want to share any of your thoughts, whether it's even speaking specifically about the multi-year strategic plan? I think if anybody has a chance, and you can see it's probably on the backgrounds for some of us itself. And I know right here with the book piece itself, you can see it's colorful and it has some symbolism in it. So is there anything you want to share about that, Allison?
Yeah, thank you. I had a unique introduction to the committee as well because of the timing of my appointment. I came into the committee halfway through some of the work, so I had to quickly get caught up to speed and sift through that information. What I would say about the process, which I think is also captured in a good way of the graphics of it, is that the process is a plan. It's a journey. The process of creating this is truly a journey. It's a deliberate, informed, and messy journey. But I think the messiness is really where the beauty of all of it happens. It's important to have that structure and framework, which I think you also see through the graphic, and a good facilitator, obviously. You need to consider the input from stakeholders to organize it and to break it into tangible themes so that you can have meaning and be measurable. But it's truly the messiness of the plan, the messiness that the plan comes to full fruition. So there are times it's funny, as part of the committee, you're reviewing the input from everyone, the community, staff, students, trustees, senior team, and thinking, how will this ever come to fruition? And then poof, it just does. It becomes clear, and the confusion and the messiness and the overwhelming amounts of information, it's all part of that really effective, exciting process. And I am really excited about this plan as well. I think it really captures Halton culture, priorities. It's reflective of the communities, and it's open to both staff and students, which is really, really important. Students are our bottom line, and in order to support their needs, we need to have happy, healthy staff. So as for the actual graphics, I think that it speaks to everybody differently, and that's what we heard through the when we were collecting that input. But I think for me, the graphics are really progressive, they're futuristic, and they kind of capture that AI technology piece that we know is where we're going in a lot of areas. So.
Yeah, great. And I know Director Ennis just hinted on that, and I guess we're going to start moving that direction a little bit, because when I look at the centerpiece of the infographic of our multi-year strategic plan, right, I see a number of people. And they're all embraced and they're all connected. Again, like you said, different people take and resonate a little bit differently with it. And so whether that's looking and seeing it, is it staff, is it students, is it all of us? But that connectiveness speaks to kindness, connection, and community. And so, Chair Collard, I would love to hear your thoughts on that particular area of kindness, connection, and community.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this particular pillar or commitment. It's one that is brand new to our multi-year strategic plan, and we really worked hard to make sure that we built a robust commitment to this. It's not just there for show. It's intentional. Kindness is intentional. It's not just about being nice. It's about something much deeper than that. It goes to the spirit of the person. And it's about that intentionality of being good to other people and listening well and responding well and engaging and being a part of your community. our connections to our community, and I say this especially on behalf of trustees, we are extremely connected to our communities. Our communities come to us with a lot of questions and things that they don't understand about the system. And it's the trustee who quite often helps that community member understand how to navigate through the system, whether it be transportation, a boundary review, special education. And so those connections that we build with the community are all important to building trust and faith in the publicly funded education system that we maintain. I love the way we've clustered these things together, and the way that none of the commitments in this multi-year plan stand alone. They all work together, which goes back to your observation about the center, where we see 6 people in a huddle in a circle at the bottom. Every single one of these commitments is in that huddle. And they work together to ensure that our students are healthy mentally, physically, spiritually, that they are engaged in their learning and learning to their maximum capability, that they honor and respect all of the people that are in the schools with them, and that when they go home at the end of the day, they feel good about what they've learned. And I'm very, very proud to have been part of putting this together.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's one of the areas that I'm really looking forward to. There's been a lot of buzz around that. And I know that there were even some challenges for us as a system to say, hey, can you measure kindness? And we embraced that, right? So we went to look at academic journals and other aspects to see what does that look like. And, we've talked about schools, and I'm going to come back to Alison probably to talk about staffing as well again too. But, in the video, Chair Collard, you had mentioned around our commitment to Indigenous rights in education. And I'm going to ask our system principal, Gabby, to maybe share with us, because there's a couple of words you mentioned in there, specifically inalienable and inherent rights. Because I know, I have the Human Rights and Equity portfolio, and I always speak of Indigenous rights may include human rights, but there's also other rights such as inherent and inalienable. And so, Principal Gabby, do you want to share any thoughts and reflections on what does inherent and inalienable rights actually mean?
Sure. My privilege. First, I just want to acknowledge and say thank you for the invitation to participate, and just acknowledge in my own first language, so Che Wachoy, Che Faxi, and Che Pachamama. So I'm very, very pleased that the Indigenous rights and education goals within that multi-year plan continue to be a priority. It is so important that we continue to maintain focus on what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls upon all public sectors to respond to improve and respond to knowing truths and to learning about contributions and improving conditions for all Indigenous peoples across the nation that is now called Canada. And so in reference to your question, when I think about inherent rights, inalienable rights, I think about that the first people of the lands in which across really Turtle Island and their relationships, we mustn't forget the integral and interconnected and responsibilities that First Peoples have to their distinct territories. And when we talk about the region that Halton schools are on, it is the inherent rights holders are the Mississaugas of the Credit. And so when we think about inherent rights holders and reaching out in consultation, we often connect with the Mississaugas of the Credit to ask about what is their wishes and how do they see our work needing to move forward on their territory. And so inherent rights it's very complex, but it talks about, it refers to connections and decisions connected to the land and their wishes and hopes for everything that is on the territory, which includes wishes towards education, which includes wishes towards improvement and relationships with the environment, which includes relationships with nation to nations, other nations, other governing bodies. And so we often consult with them. There's also something that's referred to as Indigenous rights, which is a broader consideration of rights generally for Indigenous people across the globe. And so there are many Indigenous rights that we also consider, and you'll find the work within Halton District School Board also acknowledges the United Nations Declaration of Rights for First People, for Indigenous people, and that's something we also work with. So we'll work with inherent rights of the First People from the territory in which we're on, and then we also work with Indigenous rights, which also encompasses many, many other nations. I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, for sure. And you know, when we're thinking about the multi-year strategic plan, there's always this question about beautiful plan. What would it look like on the ground? And you know, I'm going to be asking one of our superintendents, McIntosh, to really, when, you know, because we have, and I think people watching have had a chance to know when we did even put call out that we're going to be having Director's Panel Series, we've offered a forum for questions. And so we've already fielded a number of questions, and it's through some of those themes that I have been asking my colleagues here questions, and I know that some more will be coming in live as we're going tonight. But, you know, one of the questions from the community was, you know, how does the multi-year strategic plan ensure that students are engaged in meaningful learning activities during class hours that does not rely heavily on screens and technology? And, you know, before Superintendent McIntosh, I ask you to kind of reflect on that question. You know, we know that reality. We've seen provincially the shift right now from again, hearing parent voice, student voice, staff voice about cell phone use and technology, and the steps that are being taken by schools and school boards around that piece. And then there's that next level of still what technology is engaged in class and what is not. And so it's not being heavily relied upon. And so Superintendent McIntosh, you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pardeep, for sharing that question. I really think that the new multi-year strategic plan has really a lot of areas of focus that we can, that are interconnected, that has already been identified. And we're able to really create robust and rich, dynamic classroom learning spaces that draws in a number of different elements for students to not only expand their purview and perspective, but also encourage and empower excellence in academics. And so a couple of things really come to mind and strike me. You know, as System Principal Escobar was just talking about, you know, there's a connection to a number of knowledge holders and knowledge keepers within our communities that we can make strong connections to. And whether it is that we are inviting those community members into the classroom in order to share their experiences with our students, we can also parallel that with the opportunity to take the learning outside into our outdoor school spaces as well. We have a great number of schools who have outdoor classrooms, outdoor learning spaces, are connected to rich landscapes where we can pair and match the learning that happens in the classroom with our educators into our outdoor school spaces as well. That ties nicely into environmental and global citizenship and leadership. Added to that, we have a number of hands-on learning experiences that our educators continue to build and develop in their own learning. So we have inquiry-based learning and projects, experiments that we can do in the area of STEM that allows us to excel and lead in a number of different areas that, you know, really speaks to all of the different opportunities that exist for students in the classroom, and that's from elementary and secondary schools. And the final thing that I'll also add to that is that we also have the opportunity to engage in experiential learning with community partners and post-secondary partners, but also, you know, to go into the community and go on field trips and you know, do firsthand learning again in spaces and places within our region and beyond that will help to bring that curriculum to life with our educators.
Great, thank you. And you know, this next question from the community is probably the one we always hear, no matter what we're sharing about what we're doing. And I think Director Ennis had touched upon it as well. You know, student achievement. Make sure, Halton, you're always focusing on student achievement. Don't ever let that slip. And we're all, you know, we're proud of our EQA scores, but we also know that we want to always do better and move everybody up when we're looking at those, and our students that might not necessarily be doing as well. And so this is always a question that all of us field in our different portfolios, whether as a trustee, whether as the director, or whatever portfolios. When we go out, we hear this a lot. And I'm going to ask Superintendent Connor to please share with us how academic excellence is encouraged through the multi-year strategic plan.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Firstly, I would just perhaps start by saying that, you know, really, when we identify a plan, it is a plan of commitments. But what is most critical is how we action those commitments, and really being able to move the work and the vision and the belief in our system through to schools, through to classrooms, and through to our students. Certainly learning engagement and achievement is one of, not surprisingly, our commitments within the multi-year plans. As you've alluded to, it's what we talk about when we center and really focus on the work and the achievement and the goals of our actions as a school board. And so in terms of actioning what that looks like, certainly we have an operational plan that guides and directs the work of the board. But at the school level, we also have school principals as well that have a deep commitment to continuously looking at how do we improve and support ongoing student learning and achievement and excellence in education. What that looks like operationally is really being able to dig into rich analysis on an ongoing basis of some of our system data, but also at the school level, our principals being able to continually look at and understand how our students are doing and how their students are doing with the context within their school community. Through that process, what that looks like within a school and through school leadership is the opportunity for our administrators to be able to really think critically and unpack how our students are doing in regards to a whole range of factors that capture for us student excellence and achievement. That identifies such areas as you've alluded to, EQAO, but I would say lots of information that shares and highlights for us how our students are doing and how we continue to grow and improve and do better. Looking at things like our credit completion rates, our graduation rates, looking at our report card achievement data, looking at the breadth of data that we have that tell us how our students are experiencing school, and being able to also disaggregate that data for different subgroups of students to ensure that we're achieving excellence not only for some students, but for all students. Inherent in that process is also being able to capture student voice level data. So we look at our have your say level data that shares not only how students are doing academically in terms of a measurement or a quantitative measure of how students are doing, but how our students are experiencing school, how they're engaged in learning, and that we are, again, as Superintendent McIntosh has identified, creating learning spaces that not only create opportunities for students to demonstrate excellence academically, but excellence in their experience of a school opportunity that is engaging, that supports them and allows them to really grow and develop to the fullest potential that they have. In terms of being able to dig into that work, it's then knowing with clarity how we are doing and how we will continue to improve in terms of actioning that work. And that means really looking critically at our strategies, our actions, our implementation of changes in the way that we do what we've done to continue to respond and get better based on what we know is happening within our schools. That looks like actions, that looks like staff learning, that looks like pulling in student voice to, again, drive and direct what that work looks like. and then holding ourselves accountable to seeing that we're continuing to shift and move and get better as a system. So that really speaks in my mind to not only the commitment, but also how we action that work in a really deep, rich, robust, and ongoing way to make sure, again, the vision of our commitment for our board doesn't only live within a pamphlet or in a conversation, but it lives within our classrooms and with our student experience within each and every one of our schools.
Great. And, Tara, thank you very much for sharing that aspect, because again, when we talk about the evolution and, we started from when we were just exploring and getting stakeholder input, bringing it all together. Allison talked about the messiness of that process. We synthesize it, and then we say, okay, now how can we actually present this visibly, right? And then within that, once we kind of got that sense, then what does it mean? What are the objectives? And then afterwards, that last cornerstone that you just talked about, accountability, right? And so you start seeing the thread right throughout the whole process piece itself here. And I'm going to come back to you, Charlie, to ask again, centering students. What do you believe is the most important thing for students to succeed right now, and how do you think this plan will help them?
When it comes to student success, students need the right conditions to achieve their goals and build bright futures. This means creating a learning environment where every student feels engaged and supported in their academic journey. I believe that the 2024 to 2028 multi-year strategic plan has been thoughtfully developed to provide exactly that. It emphasizes creating an inclusive and equitable learning environment where every student can access the tools and opportunities they need to learn and thrive in their pursuit of academic excellence. I also am happy to see how the plan highlights innovation by equipping students with future-ready skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, and adaptability. This forward-looking approach not only prepares students for success in their current studies, but will also help us navigate the ever-changing world confidently. By creating the right conditions for learning and achievement, the multi-year strategic plan is setting us students up for meaningful and fulfilling futures.
Great. And it's really important to hear and heartwarming in terms of that piece of what is so meaningful for students and what would help them in their student success. And, I'm going to turn it over to the Superintendent Ippolito to kind of share when we're looking at that aspect too. We want the best from our staff as well, right? And when we look at that, so that when we have the best from our staff, we know that we're giving the students the best that we have as well. And is there anything you want to share with respect to the multi-year strategic plan and some aspects of it that connect to staff?
Thanks, Pardeep. Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind, I would focus on wellness right now for the purpose of this question. I did mention previously that I was really excited about this plan for multiple reasons, but every area of the plan really allows for space for staff improvement in all the commitments, which was very intentional. It was very intentional throughout the entire process by all parties that were part of the development, and that came through from the feedback from staff and the community as well. So it's really great to work in an area that does prioritize staff as well and sees that link to student excellence and student achievement. I'll give you a little bit of a story as I go into the wellness commitment piece as it relates to staff, but I started in Halton early 2000s. I don't know what the exact year was, but and I remember when wellness as a staff priority was in its infancy in the workplace, and it was such a novel, progressive commitment at the time, and it was hard to convince people back then to take it as a serious commitment, and to convince them that it did have far-reaching impacts. The wellness of our staff is incredibly important for student achievement and wellness. So quick story, we developed a wellness committee at the time. it had representatives from various areas of the organization, and each physical site also had a subcommittee. And here at the board office, I was excited to be part of this progressive new initiative in this wellness committee. And you might remember at the time too, like plastic water bottles were still a big thing at the time. So if you want to talk about environmental commitment as well, and the idea of, reusable was just kind of coming into play at the time. And I had brought a recommendation forward to the wellness committee to put a cooler in the water cooler. We didn't have a water cooler in the building at the time, 20 years ago or so. A little bit embarrassing to bring it forward now, but I say it in jest because I'm thinking back and I share it as an indicator of the progress we've taken in this area of wellness. And wellness is an incredibly complicated subjective notion, right? We know this. There are intersectionalities of what keeps me well and healthy may not keep another well and healthy. Of course, once you get back to past the basic needs of per Maslow. So, but it's very obvious in this plan and through the feedback and through how people feel about the priority that it is important for students and staff. And it's great to see that throughout this plan and its development. And it's incredible to see the progression over the years. And I'm excited to continue that work for staff, which is work that's already well underway. You mentioned the previous plan being so sound that we really took a lot of the commitments. And that's an exact example of us really wanting to continue recognizing that really good, important work and continuing it through the life of this plan as well. So yeah, great to see the evolution of it in both importance and approach from a wellness perspective, and really putting the highlight on staff for that as well.
Great. Thank you, Alison. And you hinted upon a sidebar story that we had when we were even just talking about the past days, and you did already before, and I was going to bring it up, but you did, and I'm just going to reinforce it because I'm going to ask your caller to speak on environmental and global citizenship. But that piece you talked about, and you metaphorically shared it similarly with wellness, right? Because at one time, who would have thought that wellness would be part of a strategic plan? Equally, when environmental was starting to be considered, at that time, I think you had talked about it was about papers and water bottles, right? And what does it mean coming into 2025? And so, Chair Collar, do you want to kind of speak to that evolution as well? And for us, when we're talking about environmental and global citizenship?
Well, Pardeep, I've been a trustee here for 14 years. And before I even became a trustee, I came and talked with the senior admin team about banning bottled water at the school board. And there were a number of reasons for it, but my primary reason was environmental. And it took a long time, but we now have in our procurement policy that we no longer will reimburse for the purchase of single-use bottled water. And that was, for me, a big win. But now when we look at the environmental approach, so many years later, it's got to do with how we build our schools, how we heat and cool our schools, planting trees, making sure there's shade on the property, which is also a huge benefit to students and staff who are out for recess. How we maintain our properties using environmentally sensitive products and green bins. That was another great big evolution into our schools when we brought in green bins. And I know that our custodial employees worked very hard in incorporating the use of green bins properly into the minds of the students so they understood what belonged in the green bins and what belonged in the blue bins. And I'm so excited that we have in the last and in this new multi-year strategic plan included environmental stewardship as one of our commitments and made it broader than that. It's not just environmental, but also global citizenship and realizing that what we do here has an impact elsewhere. I love that it's been included in the plan again this time around, and even with greater import, I think.
No, and thank you. And, and when I'm just reviewing and looking at key objectives, and it talks about incorporating the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals into learning and work environments. And so that really speaks to the evolution piece. Again, and it actually still always makes me smile when I think about the kindness piece itself. And I want to take this back to Director Ennis and ask him to share some more thoughts on that commitment and a possible kindness challenge that he has spoken about too as well. And so, Director Ennis, smiling with kindness, you want to keep us on that track a little bit?
Thank you so much, Pardeep. I'm smiling because in the early days of meeting with Student Senate around the commitment on kindness, connection, and community, I just had this idea around issuing a challenge, and Charlie was there, of course, and so was Caitlin and others. And I issued a challenge to the student senators to say, why don't you email me within the next 48 to 72 hours, acts of kindness that you are engaged in your schools, in your communities. And you would not believe my inbox started to get a lot of pings from students telling me about the acts of kindness. Director Ennis, today I saw a student who was sitting by herself in the lunchroom, and I went over and invited her to join my group. Director Ennis, someone was struggling with math, and I walked by, sat beside them, and helped them with their work. Director Ennis, someone was coming into the building, and I opened the door for them. Director Ennis, today I just smiled at someone and I said hello. I invited someone I never spoke to before to be a part of my connection and my group. It was a beautiful thing to see. I shared it with some of you on the screen, some of the many acts of kindness that I received from students. It was overwhelming to see. But it also highlighted for me that all of us, if we are able to speak to students, to encourage them, to challenge them, they will rise to the occasion. And I know that in our world today, there's a lot of polarization. There is a lot of division. But I've often said this, and you know this, that I truly believe this, that as a board, as the HDSB, that we can be a better example of our world, that we can actually be the sample that they look at for how we should treat each other, how we should be kind to each other. Because we have differences, because we have different identities, because we celebrate different festivals, because we have different religions, because we belong to different race, whatever the differences are, all of that can be overcome by acts of kindness. We can be kind to each other. And so that's the culture that I think all of us on the screen, trustees and staff and students, want to see in our board, where we are treating each other for our humanity. And then we're seeing each other in all of our human forms. And so I am excited about that particular commitment. And I am issuing this challenge once again to those who may be listening to send me your acts of kindness. And it goes to parents and it goes to community and staff as well. I think if we live our lives, sort of exemplifying kindness, we will absolutely, I have no doubt, be living in a better world.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the video and I see Chair Collard clapping, and I think that is worth a clap for even all of us on screen here. There's a part of me that just almost saying a mic drop and want to kind of wrap up here on the kindness piece itself. But you did issue the challenge, and I want to give everybody that's part of tonight's director panel series a chance to reflect upon that kindness piece. And if there's anything you want to share, please do share right now around that commitment of kindness, because I think it's an important piece, it's a positive piece, and it can continue to be a game changer in terms of how we as a board, commit ourselves, given all the challenges that are around us. So, Eleanor, do you want to share anything about that to start us off?
I think what is really imperative about the kindness is the opportunity for intentionality and authenticity to think about others. And as our community is changing and growing and expanding in beautiful ways, I challenge people to consider, to think about that authenticity that comes with kindness and how we can spread and propagate that amongst many in our community as we welcome a number of new people to the region and into our school and classroom spaces. So that is my challenge for our community tonight.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to share before we wrap up? Go ahead, Gabby. Yeah, I see the hand up.
Thank you. I'd like to also encourage thinking to include kindness to the environment in that thinking, in those acts, kindness to the water, kindness to the earth. We're all from creation, and if we're truly to respect all of creation, which includes humans, we should really be respectful of all that, Earth has to offer us, because she works really hard for us, and we should be reciprocating that kindness in return, which also includes kindness to each other.
Very beautiful. Thank you, Gabby.